All right. Well, hello. I'm Laura Brandenburg here today with Michael Glazer. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Laura.
Great to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yes, yes, thank you. I'm really excited to talk about mental fitness today. And that just for those who don't know you, you are a certified leadership coach and consultant. You've worked with leaders at really top companies across the globe. I find it fascinating that you're in Tokyo and that you speak both English and Japanese. So I feel like you have a lot to bring to this conversation. And
Thanks.
we're really here today. Obviously, our community is business analysis professionals and in a corporate space, and you help people in professional spaces with mental fitness. And so we wanted to talk a little bit more about that. It seems really ripe for that. You just share a little bit about like what mental fitness is and why we should be concerned about it.
Sure. So essentially, mental fitness is our ability to deal with life's challenges, big and small, with a positive mindset instead of a negative mindset. And when we're able to do that, three really good things happen. One, it gives us the ability to reach peak performance. It gives us the ability to increase our well-being, our peace of mind. And then the third thing it does is it gives us the ability to create and maintain high quality relationships.
Right. Which are all important, right? Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I can't think of anybody who doesn't either want those or doesn't want a little bit more of those.
Yes. It's interesting as I was reflecting on this idea of fitness, because like the first comparison I made in my head was to mental toughness, but it's
Mm.
really like, I think from a metaphorical perspective, like toughness is like that. I can handle anything, right? Where fitness feels more like I'm agile and I have strength. I have these multiplicity of abilities to handle maybe life's challenges, as opposed to just I can tough it out. Is that a good metaphor to be thinking about what this is like in the real world?
Uh, in ways, yes. I'd say to add some contrast to what you're talking about, when we say, meeting life's challenges with a positive instead of a negative mindset. Negative mindset means that we're operating from negative emotions or negative self-talk that are governed by things like fear, anxiety, shame, stress, and anger.
Mhm.
And so instead of that, mental fitness helps us tap into powers like empathy, compassion, creativity, curiosity, big picture thinking, purpose, and clear headed, laser focused action. So that's really the difference that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I could just like feel myself calming down as you're talking about that. Like body response. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So our community, which you know a little bit about because I was on your podcast too, but we're business analysts, right? And so we tend to be very analytical people. We also have a strong business acumen. So we have really it's a dual perspective on a software business change project. I
Mm.
think on the positive side, this can look like really understanding the problem that needs to be solved, getting everyone on the same page, really understanding the needs at a very detailed level and getting the requirements. But like everything, there's that shadow side too, which is maybe where more that negative
Yeah.
side can come out, right? We can be perceived as overly critical or hyper vigilant about an outcome and care more about things than sometimes anybody else does, or we can feel that way. We might feel like we need to make everyone happy on a project, or also like just being a stickler for the details. And that can
Yeah.
be a little bit, maybe we can get worried about being overly detailed, but also then worried about if we miss a detail. So what, from an emotional or sorry, a mental fitness perspective, what would be some of the challenges somebody like that might deal with?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned things like being a stickler for details or being hyper vigilant or being keeping
Yeah.
everybody happy, being a people pleaser. These are three ways we actually self-sabotage ourselves when we get into these modes. And each one of these three areas has its own mental fitness challenge. So, for example, I'll start with a stickler. When we find ourselves in stickler mode, one of the mental fitness challenges around this is being able to have a level of discernment and awareness so that we make sure that when we're managing to what stakeholders, I think in a business analyst context, what stakeholders are actually expecting us to deliver as opposed to some kind of internal high standards that we have. And I think this is part of the reasons why this can be a challenge, is because, when we're in stickler mode, again, a form of self-sabotage, what we're hearing in our heads is something that says, I have to aim for perfection. Perfection is good. Perfection is required. And, other people, they're lazy, they're sloppy, they're just not up to the task. And so when you're in stickler mode and you're looking around and you're observing people, tend to get, frustrated, tend to get angry that they're not doing things up to our standards or not doing them right. And so, what people may not realize is that other people may actually be angry at us when we get ourselves into stickler mode, because they're thinking, why am I always being, criticized? Or if they think I'm actually doing what the stakeholders or the sponsor is requesting, but still I'm being held to a higher standard, nothing's ever good enough, this can create a sense of resentment. So being able to discern and have that awareness is one of the challenges for the stickler.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example. So in that case, like how might a business or somebody who has that stickler mindset or that stickler challenge, how might they deal with that? How might they try to overcome it?
Yeah. So one thing that a stickler can do is, and this may sound like common sense for people coming from a business analyst background, is just pause for a second and do an evidence check, right? Whether it's going back to the project charter, whether it's going to a requirements document or something like that, what's the evidence of what I'm supposed to deliver here? And is there any difference between what I'm seeing in these documents and what I'm actually trying to work toward? So one is just having the discernment and the awareness to be able to take the time to do that. Another thing that somebody in stickler mode might do would be actually share this tendency with teammates and stakeholders. Say, sometimes I know I get myself into stickler for detail mode. And my guess is that if someone made the choice to do that, they probably earn trust, as a result of making themselves vulnerable around this. And they could even take that a step further, I think. They can, for example, invite people to have conversations or give them explicit permission to do, say, a stickler check. If team members get the feeling like, the stickler's in action, having permission to actually talk about it, as opposed to something that they fear may actually create relationship or conflict, could be a way to help team and also help performance.
Yeah, I love that. And I also feel like a lot of times where this comes up for business analysts, and we talked about this in your podcast, I'll leave a link to that too, but is because the role is ill-defined, right? So the stickler is really an expectation that we have about our role that is in conflict with what the stakeholder might have about our role. So just getting that all out on the table can have a lot of positive impact.
Yeah, exactly.
How about the people pleaser? Because I feel like that affects a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. And I get myself into people pleaser mode sometimes as well. I think this is common amongst consultants and coaches, actually. For the people pleaser, I think one of the mental fitness challenges is about developing a really strong sense of self-worth, practicing self-compassion, self-empathy. Because for a lot of people, when they get themselves into pleaser mode, again, a form of self-sabotage, they have difficulty saying no, or they say yes without realizing that they can put reasonable conditions to the support that they're offering people. So I think for people pleasers, what's going on is they're being governed primarily by feelings or emotions like fear or anxiety. They want to earn people's acceptance. And they're worried that by saying no, it could damage the relationship. They could lose a relationship with somebody who's important to them. And so here, one thing that the pleaser can do to practice self-compassion would be something like, imagine yourself, talking to a 5-year-old. So if you had a 5-year-old who said to you, I want to advocate for myself. You wouldn't crouch down to the 5-year-old and point your finger at him or her and say, like, how dare you? That's so selfish. You'd be out of your mind. You would say, you're valuable. Of course, you matter. Your needs matter. And you would praise them and encourage them to directly express what they need to other people so that their needs could be fulfilled. And so this is the kind of thing that if we learn to practice on our own, could help us, set and protect boundaries that not only help our sense of well-being and performance, but also help relationships. And I think one of the counterintuitive things here is that oftentimes by saying no in appropriate ways, we actually earn more acceptance and respect than by saying yes all the time.
Oh my goodness, I think that's so true.
Right?
Yeah, because when it's especially in a role like the business analyst is, where you can very easily start to take on so many responsibilities and then it weighs you down, right? So saying no to the things that are outside of your scope or to requirements or needs that are really outside the scope of the project, it does position you at a higher level, and that earns credibility for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Is
And
there an example? Because I'm imagining in your consulting, you've done things like this where you've had the no actually elevate your reputation or credibility.
yeah, yeah, of course. And actually, even before my consulting work started a decade ago, I was a global functional head at the IT division of Morgan Stanley, and I worked closely with business analysts on a regular basis. And one of the things that came up frequently was a sponsor or a stakeholder would ask to add a feature.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's pretty common. If you say yes to that without having a conversation of, well, that's going to cost a week on the timeline, that can create problems for the team. So being able to say what our team does is valuable, we need an extra week to do this right, is the kind of conversation, if it's done well, I think most reasonable stakeholders, if not all of them, are going to respect.
Mhm.
Another one that comes up in my consulting is the pleaser is afraid to demand what their services are worth.
Mm.
The client's asking for a discount, the client's asking to overservice, and you want to say yes to make them happy, and then you wind up making yourself angry because you didn't really support yourself or advocate for yourself. So I think this is another pattern that's pretty common.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can identify with all of those things at certain points in my career as well. So we talked about some of the challenges and how to overcome them. It still feels like as if there would be a significant investment to say, okay, this is the year I'm going to work on my emotional fitness, right? So how would someone know, with everything that might be on their plate or the potential opportunities that they have, that this is an area that's really going to make the difference in their life or their career? This is their next step to work on this particular area.
Sure. Yeah. So I think there's two parts to that question, right? There's the what kind of results can I expect part of the question. And then
Mhm.
there's, well, like, what's the time investment? How much time do I have to invest to actually see these results? From talking about the results first, uh, I'm aware of a body of academic research. It's about 200 studies that collectively has studied more than 275,000 people. And what the results say are that people who have higher levels of mental fitness, not only do they earn more, but they're more successful in business, in marriage, in health, friendships, creativities, a whole bunch of different aspects of life. And just to give you a couple of data points that may be relevant for business analysts, um, project teams that are managed by leaders who have high levels of mental fitness perform 31% better on average than other like teams. Another relevant data point is that project managers who have high levels of mental fitness make more accurate and higher quality decisions with less effort than their peers do. And because I like threes, I'll add a third one in there. Not so related, but for salespeople who have high levels of mental fitness sell 37% more than their counterparts who have low mental fitness. So there's tons of data to support this.
Mhm.
And in terms of time, how much time do you need? The thing that's most important here is that people make a commitment to invest some substantial time upfront to build the habits that make this possible. And specifically, they need 15 minutes of practice on a daily basis for 6 to 8 weeks. And when I work with clients on this, it's that 15 minutes a day for 6 weeks plus between 1 and 2 hours a week to learn and discuss the different skills needed for developing mental fitness.
You said significant, and then you said such a small number, right? Like it
Well,
was, oh, that's nothing. I mean,
Well,
people,
I'm glad to
yeah,
hear you say that. Yeah, because
yeah,
that's like less than what, 3% of people's waking time, but it can sound like
mhm.
a lot to busy professionals, right?
For sure, for sure. And I just want to emphasize as well, I feel like mental fitness has been a thread in all the coaching that I've received throughout the years. And I've shared before how much I invest in my own personal professional development. And these days it's more on the personal development and that's where the external results come from. And
Yeah.
so the things like the salary that you might not want, or the title, or the salary you do want that you're not getting, or the title that you do want that you're not getting, often it feels like this external thing, but it like the results or the work starts in here. And it has
That's
a
right.
multiplier effect too. So you start it and then it gets easier as you go. And the momentum tends to build upon itself. At least that's been my
Yeah, no, that's
experience.
exactly right. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. So when we feel like we have to push through and we're using words like I have to, I should, I must, typically we're being driven by the forces that are responsible for our self-sabotage. When we're in a mode where it's generative, where we feel like we're in a state of ease and flow, things are coming naturally because we're
Mhm.
using the parts of our brain responsible for the kinds of skills I mentioned before: empathy, creativity, curiosity, and so on. This is where we're in ease and flow. And it's much easier to not only achieve success, but to achieve happiness in the process of being
Mhm.
successful.
Yes. Oh, there's so many more things I could ask you around this, but I know that we've gone a little bit. So tell me, for somebody who does want to dig deeper, because you've piqued our interest about what this looks like, what are some resources that they might explore?
Yeah, if you're going to pick up one, and I'll just kind of
Yeah.
go back to this people don't have a lot of time. If you're going to pick one source, what I would recommend is a book called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's been translated into 20 languages. So I think there's a good chance, no matter where in the world people are tuning in from and what their native language is, they have a pretty good shot of reading it in a familiar enough language. The other thing that they might also check out is the website, also called positiveintelligence.com. If you're interested in knowing where you self sabotage and what those patterns are, there's a free 5-minute assessment you can take and get the results there.
Very, very cool. And you also coach personally on this.
That's
So
right.
if somebody wanted to learn more about what you offer or yeah, what you offer, how would they do that?
Yeah, so 3 ways you can contact me. One is on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/learning pro. You could also find my website, glazercoaching.com, or my company website, which is peoplefocus.com. Or sorry, peoplefocusconsulting.com.
All right. And all of those will hook them up with you around the coaching. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. And I know there's so much more that you could offer around this, but any last takeaways or tips, something that you hope that somebody will take with them from this conversation today?
Just to give it a try and to invest in yourself. This has been a game changer for so many people. More than 500,000 people worldwide have gone through this type of mental fitness program. And what I hear most often is people saying, wow, this has really worked for me. Now, can you do this with my partner? Or now, can you do this with my team? So
Mhm.
give it a try. If you have any questions at all, I promise I will respond to each and every message I receive. So don't hesitate. Don't let your saboteurs get in the way of reaching out and contacting me. Let's start a conversation and see where it goes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I would really encourage anybody who's interested in learning more, reach out to Michael and find out more. These kinds of investments definitely pay dividends when you're thinking about your career. All right. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks, Laura. It's been great.